Are you ready to rewind? Take a nostalgia-filled ride back to a simpler time. It's Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. And now your hosts, Joe Murata and Michael Quinn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 74 of Acid Wash Memories, a retro pop culture celebration. Today, we continue the combat with Mortal Kombat 2. I am Joe Murata. Player 2 over here is Michael Quinn. How you doing there, Michael?
Mortal Kombat!
We're continuing our trilogy, if you will, here of the Mortal Kombat series. So if you didn't catch part 1, be sure to check that one out. But part 2, I think this will be a lot of fun.
This is the good one.
This is the best one,
This
in my
is the
opinion,
one everyone likes the best.
I think so. And folks, if you like us the best, we surely do appreciate that. Why don't you follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast. You can also join on Facebook, our very friendly group. Yes, it is friendly over there. And what we do over there is talk about old crap, Quinn.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Always old.
Just old
Always
crap.
crap.
All kinds of friendly
Never
folk
anything
over there.
important.
No, it really isn't, but that's the best part is, you know, this group is greater than the sum of its parts, perhaps. Yeah. So anyway, thank you guys for being with us here. We really, really, really do appreciate you. And if you haven't checked out Acid Wash Memories before, there are 73 other episodes available where, Quinn?
In the archives.
In the archives. One of them is about Mortal Kombat, but there's all sorts of stuff. We've talked about Seinfeld most recently, Taco Bell, all sorts of stuff.
All important things in your life that need to be discussed.
I mean, Taco Bell does need to be discussed, let's be fair.
I mean, it's been something probably Taco Bell's wanted people to do for many years.
I would think so, and we did it. So thank you guys for being with us here. We really do appreciate you. We can pick it up with Mortal Kombat 2 here. Before we talk about that, though, you and I were kind of saying jocularly in the beginning here that it's the best one. That opinion I held back in 1994 when I first played it, and then when the third one came out, I still held...
I hated the third one.
Right.
I was like, what the hell? Running? Why?
And then when the fourth one came out, I still held the opinion that Mortal Kombat 2...
For a lot of people, I want to say, I feel like Mortal Kombat 4 was like, oh, so this isn't going to move past Street Fighter, is it? Because Street Fighter was now like in the alpha days and was way better.
Yes, it was.
And like Mortal Kombat just went to shit.
They did. They had a lot of ups and downs.
Right.
Obviously, they persist to this day, like we've said in the previous episode
here. They fixed
here.
themselves eventually, but it was touch and go there for a while. But, you know, for a long time, I felt like it can't get any better than Mortal Kombat 2. It was like the best one they ever made. And
in terms of the 2D fighters, man, it really didn't get much better than Mortal Kombat 2.
Here it is! Mortal Kombat 2! More characters! 3 times more images! More secret moves!
We're going to talk about it, but let's just recap where we were. So, as we mentioned in part 1 of this a few episodes back, the first Mortal Kombat was released to the arcades in August of 92, and then a year later, in September of 93, Mortal Monday happened for the home console versions, which cemented Mortal Kombat not only as a top-selling arcade game, but also as a top-selling home console game as well. And as we also mentioned, the Genesis version in particular was particularly successful. The Mortal Kombat for Genesis was the 5th highest-selling Genesis game ever.
The blood, Joe.
Yeah, it was the Abacab.
I saw some discussion there like, yeah, it's the best one or whatever, and it's like, it literally is inferior in every way other than the blood. It's literally worse. Like,
send your tweets to Michael Quinn.
But it is.
Well,
like that's the thing. Like everything's worse other than the blood.
There are people that prefer the sound of the Genesis version. There are, if from a taste point of view.
I don't. But
and other people were saying, and I just don't remember, the Super Nintendo controls were somewhat stiff and clunky. I just don't remember. I was so used to it. I don't think it ever registered with me.
Yeah, like it never hit me that way.
But to each his own, obviously.
But you had all the buttons. That's a start.
You did have more buttons. Obviously, the consumers chose the Genesis version.
Young Bobby Engels has a problem. He needs to earn the respect of his peers. So he gets Sega Genesis, the ultimate action system. And then he buys Mortal Kombat, the arcade edition.
So we've got a big successful game on our hands, but Ed Boon and John Tobias, the developers of the original Mortal Kombat, they were thinking about their next project amidst these releases, right? Due to the tremendous success of Mortal Kombat for the arcades, you would think that the next logical step would be, well, let's do another one, right?
Right.
But no, they were thinking about making a Star Wars-based game.
Honestly,
in 93.
Yeah, but from a money perspective, Star Wars always delivers even back then.
had it had its big resurgence, so that wasn't really again until 97.
I mean, what was that, like, TIE Fighter game or whatever?
Yeah, TIE Fighter it was called.
There was all these arcade things that Star Wars was still doing. Like, Star Wars was still a seller.
It was.
It's not like it's not the... Hey, we made a thing that's successful. Let's latch ourselves onto something that's even more successful and make more money.
Fair enough. However, Midway did step in, Midway with the developer for Mortal Kombat. They said, you have to do a sequel, you dopes. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. We got to capitalize on this.
Dang us.
They kept Star Wars in mind because they wanted to make their Empire Strikes Back.
I would say that this is definitely the Empire Strikes Back of the Mortal Kombat series, a.k.a. the best one.
I think so. Now, a few fundamental changes were made on the design side, which we'll talk about first. One of the things is just an improvement in the way they could use their hardware. Multi-layer parallax scrolling on some of the stages, which is added a new element. We talked about the Mortal Kombat 1 stages last time.
They're a little bland.
They really were. They were like nice attempts.
This game's stages are good.
Yes.
Like, they're actually really good.
They really are, and we're going to run through all of them in a bit. Another thing they did, this was a big deal to me, an increase in the playable characters. In Mortal Kombat 1, it was 7. Here we got 12.
Yeah, this was a huge improvement.
Huge improvement. And then also just visually, more colors, vibrant colors, more like a better color palette, I feel like.
This game is interesting because it's got like a more darker feel to it.
Yes.
However, I think it makes the characters stand out more. They pop more from the backgrounds.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well said, Quinn. Yeah. I agree with you there. And now for the digitized characters, if you recall, in Mortal Kombat 1, they used either Boone or Tobias, I forget, their own Sony High 8 camera to film all the footage for digitizing. This time around, a $20,000 Sony broadcast quality camera was used to capture.
Well, yeah, you could definitely tell the characters were like better looking.
Midway also invested in a broadcast quality Betacam camera, which was a big step up from the prosumer High 8 format, eliminating the overexposed highlights that plagued the crew before.
I've always felt Mortal Kombat 2 strayed away a little bit more from the, like, they looked extremely digitized in the first one. They looked like they were just, like, cutouts put into the game from, like, real people, whereas these more blend in with the environments. I feel like it's a little less... Hey, this is scanned in. Like, it's a little, like, it's not, like,
less
loud.
Blatant.
It's less blatant about it. Yeah, I feel like maybe it's the size of the characters a little bit, too. It's like they don't just look like pictures of people pasted into the screen.
Good point, Gwen.
Jack Hager and Warren Davis made it a priority to update their studio and equipment. Davis upgraded the capture PCs with a new Targa Plus board.
Another component of Mortal Kombat 2 that is different, and we kind of touched upon this briefly at the end of the Mortal Kombat 1 episode. They fine-tuned their humor. There was a very inherent, like an implicit sense of humor in Mortal Kombat 1, but not explicit. Like, the game takes itself seriously.
Yeah, it's like, this is a real fighting game tournament, Shaolin monk and all this. It's like, no one cares, man.
Right.
It's like...
Hey, not so fast. I care about this tournament. This tournament is crumbling.
This time around, they crank up the blood and gore to even more comedic levels, but not only that, they add in this dark humor, this sarcasm in the way it's presented in some of the things that which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
And Dan Forden once again handled all the music here, now using the upgraded Williams DCS soundboard for those of you that like that type of thing.
Hey, grasshoppers.
But let's talk about the gameplay here. They took the basic engine from Mortal Kombat 1 and they fine-tuned it. Refresher here, it's not Quinn's favorite engine. You have high punch, high kick, low punch, low kick, right? In Mortal Kombat 1, if you crouch and do either punch, you do an uppercut.
Right.
In this game, if you crouch and do a low punch, it does like a groin punch, basically. Right. So at least they like fixed that.
Yeah. There's just more options in this game. Another aspect to it is just, I feel like it's faster paced for whatever reason. Again, they didn't add a run button, which is key.
No, there's no run.
There's no run, but it plays in general faster than Mortal Kombat 1.
It feels like and maybe that's in keeping with Street Fighter 2 Turbo, perhaps? I don't know.
It does feel like almost like, it's almost like a turbo version of Mortal Kombat in a way. It's if you're not really into fighting games, The reason why Turbo exists is because I don't know why, but both Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter did this, but their vanilla versions, it's like slow as shit by default. Like, and I don't know, I don't really understand that decision necessarily. They added the turbo almost as a necessary thing, and nobody ever didn't have it on after that. It was just because it was just too freaking slow.
I always had it on, for damn sure.
Street Fighter even had granular turbo where you could it was like there was like a default turbo.
There was a scale.
Yeah, and there was like 10 choices or something. Right. But Mortal Kombat was just like, let's just move the game speed up and that's it.
And that's pretty much what they did. You know, another thing too that they changed, but it's kind of subtle. The roundhouse kicks, they knock the character all the way across the screen now.
Yeah.
Kind of like that same satisfaction as the uppercut.
Yeah. Again, it's all stuff that makes the game play faster in general. It's like there's
harsher,
there's knockback and all this other weird shit. Like, that's just like, this is good.
I feel like there's more, like the juggling is faster and like a bunch of stuff like that too, right?
Just everything. And like you can, like a lot of people have projectiles now, which is like necessary. Like, I don't know, like only a couple people had them, like in the last one as we talked about.
There's a lot more. Yes, there's a lot more projectiles.
Yeah, it's just like, because that's the thing is like, I feel like in between the time of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, I feel like the playstyle of 2D fighting games was like, okay, like every character generally, unless they're like a grappler, should have, you know, a projectile of some kind.
It's pretty much the standard.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it was. So the other big thing, besides the blood itself, Quinn, I think it's safe to say that one of the biggest draws for like the kids, the teenagers that played this the first game, were the finishing moves known as the fatalities, correct?
Right. So the fatalities were probably the thing coming into Mortal Kombat 2 that I think everyone wanted to see improved. Just more of them and better versions of them.
And you gotta admit here, man, did they deliver.
Right. So that was kind of the main addition as far as like expansion is concerned, right? Like it existed, but like this is like, okay, let's blow it up now, right?
And that's what they did. Every character has at least 2 standard violent fatalities.
Right.
But there are also other ones we'll talk about, like friendships and babalities and stuff. They really got creative. And again, that's what I was talking about with kind of cranking up the humor a little bit.
Right.
This isn't taking itself as seriously.
I'll say this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but were the babalities not universal yet? Like, were they still like everyone has like a specific way of doing? Like,
I think so.
Because I always thought that was the one thing which I know they improved later. Those kinds, the friendship, the babality, since they're more of like an insulting style one, you shouldn't have to do some like bizarre command that's specific to each character.
In Mortal Kombat 2, I think they were still difficult to pull off. I don't remember off the top of my head, but they were.
There were a couple of characters, like, say, Melina. I remember this because I liked picking her because it was easy to do, was like the back high kick, hold it for like 3 seconds, walk up to them and let go. It's like the easiest. Yeah. And she would just like do a fatality.
Yep. So this game, Mortal Kombat 2, didn't take that long to develop. I mean, they were already working on it in the wake of Mortal Kombat 1, and it was released in November of 93 for the arcade. So just to timestamp that, Mortal Monday was September of 93, just 2 months earlier.
Right.
And that was the home console version of the first game, let's keep in mind. So this is really fortuitous timing for Midway, because now they have this hot property in the arcade still, Mortal Kombat 1, still like a huge game. Then the console versions come out in September of 93, the talk of the video game industry for a while, for better or for worse. 2 months later, the sequel comes out to the arcades.
So what was really interesting about this is that I feel like I had really just gotten my hands on Mortal Kombat in the first place, and really like I knew of it the whole year it was out or whatever. Everyone was talking about it in the arcades, and you would play it at the arcades. But I had the home copy, and it was like almost instantaneous that it was like Mortal Kombat 2 is out. It's like I just got Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
And I think that really helped with, I guess, with the allure of Mortal Kombat 2.
So, yeah, there was like a year period where it was like all over the magazines, where it was like it's coming, Mortal Kombat 2 is going to come home, and like blah blah blah, and like like I still remember that EGM issue that had like the characters like in the real style characters,
I remember that.
Like the people dressed up in the costumes, and they're like posing, and they're like there's like almost like a fire reflected in their face, like you can see like a burning, but then the logo's behind, and I was like, this looks awesome, dude.
This is awesome. This is awesome. awesome.
And it's like Shang Tsung and Melina and like all this, and I'm like, damn, and like a guy dressed up like Baraka.
Yeah.
I was like, this looks cool as hell.
It really did. They did a great job promoting these games, man. So November 93 is when it came out. We might as well talk about the very important plot, Quinn, because Quinn's favorite part of video games is the plot. Especially of fighting games, right?
It's so mundane and nothing, and it's this one's just like, oh, the guy from the first one, it's like there's a guy that's his boss or whatever, like, and that's it basically. Oh, and by the way, Goro, fuck him. We got a new Goro.
That was sad.
Yeah,
it is sad. You had a great point when we talked about Mortal Kombat 1 about, despite all this diabolical blah, blah, blah gobbledygook, it's always like a gentlemanly tournament.
Yeah, it's always like, hey, there's rules, and, by the way, you can only, like, kill them once their life bar's down, and you do a command.
We have a round system here.
Round.
It's very organized here, very efficient.
Hey, what can I say? I am a man of dignity, a man of honor, a man who respects the rules. You host a podcast. Fatality indeed, motherfucker.
So the plot of Mortal Kombat 2 is Shang Tsung, who was the boss of the first game. In canon, if you recall, he lost to Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat 1 tournament. Well, after that, he had to beg his boss, like Quinn said, Shao Kahn, to spare his life. A reminder, Shao Kahn is the ruler of the evil Outworld.
Hi.
Shang Tsung is like, hey, why don't we hold the next Mortal Kombat tournament? We're going to do another one.
Yeah.
In Outworld instead of Earthrealm, where the first
have them
one
come here. We'll have the home field advantage.
That's what it is.
Which doesn't even make any sense because it's still like, I fight you and I kill you. Like, it doesn't matter that they're where they are. Like,
I don't know. Maybe
in any way.
Maybe the altitude's higher in Outworld, so you get a headache.
Maybe because Shao Kahn doesn't want to travel.
It's possible, yeah.
It's like, I'm not going over there.
Doing the away games
I'm the boss
anymore.
of this place. Like,
it's like Vince Scully at the end of his career.
Yeah.
But anyway, Shao Kahn is like, okay, fine. And as a present to Shang Tsung for this wonderful idea, he makes him young again.
Right. So I don't know, like, can you clarify this? Because I don't even know. Is he just get, like, another body? Is that really what it is? Like,
well, no, he restores his youth, Quinn.
Okay, it's just his youth. I didn't know. Because I always got the impression that Shang Tsung was, like, some spirit that, like, takes over, like, bodies. So he would get whoever the most powerful dude was or something on Earth at the time.
See, I don't know.
And then just live in his body until he's, like, old and decrepit and dead.
I think the problem is you think about it more than they did at the time. You know, and they didn't know.
Well, this is only because it was like, why the fuck is Shang Tsung so old if he's so like uber powerful? I just figured like, oh, he must be like a spirit of some kind, and he just especially because of the body changing thing.
Well, that's true. The other thing too is I can't remember if this was ever like retconned or clarified. It might have been that he looked old as a punishment, and then like he's supposed to look young by default.
Right.
I can't remember.
Oh, hi. I like video games sometime. Yeah. So Shang Tsung, it was his youth that was restored, but because, well, actually, John Tobias, he had originally done a sketch where Shang Tsung was a demon, but that wasn't, well, it's not canon. So
the other thing here is that Shao Kahn invited Raiden, the Thunder God of Earthrealm, to the tournament. What makes me chuckle about that is that I'm imagining him like filling out stationery, like I cordially invite you to my tournament, RSVP.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By year. What year does this take? Well, where is this?
So I've always
is it now?
No, it's present day, like that in quotes. Like,
where's Earthrealm? Is that our Earth or a different?
Yeah, that's us. You didn't see the movies? Like, come on.
Well, I did, but I didn't know if that's canonical. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's like all the same shit. It's just
not like Street Fighter where Shadowloo is a country.
Yeah,
near Thailand or whatever.
Well, I'm sure there's differences. I'm sure the Mortal Kombat nerds out there are like, but this or that, and I'm like, I think the general gist of like, okay, Earth realm is just Earth. And
so where's Outworld? Do we know? Arkansas?
I would assume it's some kind of parallel dimension of some kind. Like it's like, you know what I mean?
How do you get there?
Portals. I don't know.
Wait a second. Portal? All right. But anyway.
Wasn't there a portal? There's literally like a level that I assume that's the entrance.
No.
None of this matters, by the way, like at all. This is why I hate it. Like,
no, you're totally right. None of this matters,
Yeah.
Quinn. I can't argue with you. Okay. Well, Raiden RSVPs. He's like, hell yeah, I want to be in the tournament. And he gathers his Earthrealm fighters, and they go to Outworld. So that's where we are. By the way, in canon, we'll spoil this now. In official Mortal Kombat canon, Liu Kang wins the second tournament also. Because they have to have a winner, Quinn.
I'm just going to say I thought that was annoying and lazy. I was like, why?
I don't know.
But then again, doesn't Street Fighter technically do this where, like, doesn't Ryu win every time or some shit for the most part?
Didn't they eventually abandon that, though, and it's like every character's ending is whatever?
I think the later ones, it's like canonically somebody else won. Like, I forget, somebody else won Street Fighter 3. It's like Sean or something.
Is it
like,
Sean? Is it Alex or Axel or whatever his name is?
It's either one of those. It's like one of the newer guys or whatever, because the new generation, remember?
The new generation. So let's talk about the characters, first starting with the returning characters. Obviously, we have Liu Kang.
The champion,
defending champion. Still Ho Sung Pak portraying him. So this time he's in this to avenge the deaths of the Shaolin monk brothers. We have Johnny Cage, an actor, still played by the same guy, Daniel Pesina.
Now, I like Johnny Cage in this game a lot better.
He's cooler.
He's much cooler.
Much cooler. Raiden is back, Carlos Pesina. He's there because fuck Shao Kahn.
Yeah. Plus, he's like immortal or some shit. So, like, even if you do a fatality to him, it kind of doesn't matter. I assume his body just restores or some shit.
Yeah, and he has like a nifty new suit in this one with the blue like padding on it or something.
He's very nift. He's got a lot of nift.
So much nift. Scorpion is back. That is still Daniel Pesina. He is much more diabolical looking in this one.
So, yeah, they definitely like made a distinction between Scorpion and Sub-Zero, right?
Kind of like Ken and Ryu.
Yeah, like Scorpion's got like he's more evil. He has no eyeballs.
He has no eyeballs. He's not a person, right? Don't they like? Isn't that later revealed?
Yeah, he's some kind of like something.
Demon or something. I don't know what he is.
Whatever. Like, and Sub-Zero's like he's like a regular ass ninja or something.
Yes, he's still a regular person.
Yeah.
So Scorpion is in this tournament to kill Sub-Zero again. That was his mission. The usual, you know?
Is that ever not the mission?
Tom wants to chase Jerry, you know, same thing. Now, Sub-Zero is back, as we said.
But isn't Sub-Zero technically a good guy now or some shit?
Well, he's an assassin also, but he hates Scorpion. So, like, no one's really good.
Yeah, I just mean to say is that Sub-Zero falls on the Earth realm side of things, like where he's, like, allied with them, right?
He's Sonny Corinthos, in a way, Quinn.
Yeah.
Don't bring up Sonny Corinthos.
Okay, so the original Sub-Zero died in Mortal Kombat 1. The guy playing him, not the actor playing him, I'm saying the guy in the Sub-Zero suit, the character Sub-Zero. Yeah. But Sub-Zero is in this game because this is Kuai Lang, who is the younger brother of the original Sub-Zero.
Jr., basically.
Sub-Zero Jr. The original's name was Bihan, and he is currently the Scorpion of 2024
Never
canon.
even knew any of this shit.
Don't ask. Yeah. Just, let's move on here. Shang Tsung is now a playable character. He's not...
This was the huge, like, holy shit. Like, I couldn't believe this shit. Like, I was like, because... Here's the thing: Street Fighter lets you play. I don't know why they built up Shang Tsung like in a way in the first game, like you'll never be able to play because he's bullshit. Like you can just turn in everyone. Like it seems like a broken ass thing, right?
Yes.
That's not meant to be played by people.
Yeah, no, this is exciting. You get to morph and stuff like that. It was really cool. And he's young again, and he is here to protect his boss, Shao Kahn. That's why he's in the tournament.
Now, I'll say this. I played some Shang Tsung as a kid. I alternated between Shang Tsung and Mileena, and what was cool to me about Shang Tsung was that even though, like, he can change into people, he had moves that were good on his own. Like the fireballs,
he had a fireball.
back, forward, like, and if you did more back, forward, like he'd do 2 or 3 or whatever. I think he'd do up to 3.
He's a good character to play with. And the final returning character is playable now, Reptile.
This was a big deal, too, at the time, because, again, it was like, wait, you don't have to put in a code for him anymore?
Yeah.
Like, this is cool.
And they start developing him here, because if you recall, in the first game, he literally is, he's a palette swap of Scorpion and Sub-Zero, but he has both of their moves.
Right.
He has a whole new move set here where he spews like the reptile venom at you or acid.
He's good.
And yeah, he is.
He's got this slide move that's excellent.
Yes, he does have a cool slide move. He is a heel. He's here because he's Shang Tsung's bodyguard. That's why he's in the tournament. So we got some new characters. We've referenced a couple of them already. We'll start with Baraka, who was played by Richard DeVizio, who I want to mention. Same guy that played Kano in Mortal Kombat 1.
Okay, so Baraka. So first of all, Kano's not even in this game. We need to note that.
No, he's not a character.
Now that you mention him. But Baraka...
He's a mutant, by the way.
I would say this about Baraka. I think visually he was a very, like, crazy looking character, and they were willing to put him like on a lot of the art to the game because he's just like so unique looking.
Scary looking fucker with the teeth.
So he almost looks like kind of like Nosferatu or something, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like with the teeth.
With the teeth, he's a heel. By the
Yeah.
way, he's a big heel. He's actually one of the people that killed the Shaolin monks.
Okay.
That Liu Kang is here to avenge the deaths of.
Gotcha.
But he had that.
Seems like a demon of some kind.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like a minion of
he is a demon.
sorts.
Yeah. And he's got like the blade hands and
Yeah.
shit. He has some cool moves. There is Jax, played by John Parrish.
Now, Jax is here because Sonya's not here, correct?
Yes. So they're both in the special forces of Earthrealm.
Right. We talked about this in the last time,
Yes.
right? So
she's captured.
Right. So she's captured. Now, this Jax doesn't have the metal arms yet, right? In 2?
No metal arms yet.
No metal arms yet, right?
Right.
But, you know, again, he's the human, works for the government, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's basically the male version of Sonya.
That's what it is. Yeah. Good character, though.
Yeah.
I like him. And then we got twins here. We got palette swaps. Kitana and Melina, who are both played by Kathleen Zaminar. They are twin ninja sisters, and I just want to remind everyone, they're heels. They are assassins for Shao Kahn.
Now,
Yes,
and this
Quinn.
would be added in the movies or whatever.
Yes.
It was clear they wanted, from the onset, to have some kind of like adversarial relationship between the two,
Yeah.
correct? And the idea is that Katana is like the princess of the underworld or something. She's like Shao Kahn's daughter, but she's kind of like, I'm not cool with what this guy's up to.
Yeah.
Like, she's like, my dad's an asshole. So she's kind of like on the Earth realm
Right.
side, like, right? She's like incognito. She's like undercover, right?
My dad's an asshole.
Basically, I mean, like, she like assists Earth realm. Basically,
True. No, she does. But in the initial game, none of that's
none of
developed
that's
yet.
in there yet. But like, I feel like the movie came out around the same time that we even like got MK2.
Came out in 95, didn't it?
Yeah, it was like it was
We'll talk
very
about it
close.
next time.
Yeah, to the point at which I've always felt like the movie had like unearthed some weird canon that I wasn't aware of. So I just maybe in my head I applied it to 2.
It's good enough. Now, you really like Melina out of the two, right?
Right, specifically because she has a couple of moves that are good. Sub-Zero, I played a lot of... I would say I played on... It's funny, they were all next to each other on the selection, but I played a lot of Shang Tsung, Sub-Zero, Melina, and a little bit of Liu Kang every now and then.
Yeah, I used all of them, but yeah.
But those 4, which are all on like the leftish side...
If you're keeping track at home.
But Melina specifically, one thing that was really attractive about her was the fatality being easy. I was like, holy shit, I can do a fatality, right?
Yeah, that is a big deal.
Secondly, she has this forward. I'm thinking on PlayStation it would be circle, but it's like forward high kick, I guess.
Right.
And it does this move where she just goes down and comes up through the sky and does like a high kick, and it's awesome.
I wonder if anyone has the circle, dot move. That's the cootie shot.
Yes. Probably. That's like a Mortal Kombat move.
Mortal Kombat 12. All right. And then the last character here playable is Kung Lao, who is a Shaolin monk, a friend of Liu Kang.
Now, a lot of people loved Kung Lao.
Oh, yeah.
Kung Lao was like very popular as far as character people picked.
Yeah.
Because I think...
He's got a hat.
Look at him in the selection. Doesn't he look kind of cool compared to most of the other characters?
Hell yeah,
like
the
he
hat.
looks like just like a badass. He's like the Gambit or something of this crew. Like
I love that. He is. He's
yeah,
Gambit.
He's the good. He's
Gambit.
he's the cool one.
I like
right?
that, Quinn. Now, he's a relative of the great Kung Lao, who was defeated by Goro 500 years ago. Don't worry about it, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, next up, the bosses. So we've got, Quinn mentioned, sadly, fuck Goro.
We don't do that no more.
Very upsetting.
I always thought that this was a loss. Like, you know what? What they should have done is like, this is Mortal Kombat 2. You got to face both Goro and Kintaro, right? Like one after the other.
What?
Or maybe they do it where it's like round 1 it's Goro, round 2 it's Kintaro.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Like something like that.
So Kintaro is a poorly received
He's shitty.
substitute for Goro.
So why I don't like him is he's bald, mainly.
What?
Because it gives...
What do you got against bald people?
It's not the bald, it's the character design makes him look like a generic monster without the ponytail. I guess because Goro had hair, you were like, is he human? What is he? Like, you know what I mean? But Kintaro just looks like a mess. He just looks like a monster.
I love your rationale here. He doesn't have hair, so fuck him.
I just never liked it. Like, I was like, this looks weird.
A lot of people were very upset that Goro did not return because Goro, in a lot of ways, is so iconic and emblematic of the Mortal Kombat franchise.
Well, as a kid, I remember the thing that a lot of my friends were saying that I agreed with was that, why can't I play as Goro now? Because we can play as Shang Tsung. Why can't I play as Goro? Which they would amend with Shiva and stuff like that in 3.
Yeah.
Sort of.
You could play as Goro in Trilogy, which
Trilogy.
we will get to.
But he's still broken. They didn't like adjust him. That's why like Shiva's like the closest we got to like a real playable one where it's like they're not bullshit. Like you know what I mean? Like
I do.
Because they put Goro in and he still can just like punch people across the screen.
It's
like just dumb.
It's great though. So Kentaro has 4 arms also, but he has tiger stripes, and he's just not that good. He's very like middling as like a replacement. He's not a good. It's not an upgrade.
Yeah,
let's just put it that way. It's not.
I'll say this: when I first played the game, I thought he was better just because I was like, oh, he's like strong. He looks like chunkier or whatever.
He is chunky.
Like it looks like he could like kick your ass. But
good point.
Just I don't know. They should have gone with a better sub boss than Kentaro.
Yeah, because this guy is very sub Quinn.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
Stop.
And then we have the big man himself. If you can defeat the rest,
big is saying something. I mean, this guy is massive.
Shao Kahn. So he's the final boss. He's the one that put this whole tournament together. The host, if you will.
Right.
It's true. I am the host with the most. The man of the hour. Too sweet to be sour. What you see is what you get. And what you don't is better yet.
He is voiced by Steve Ritchie of Williams Pinball, who is also the game's announcer.
Right.
And that most people know that. He's the one that named it Mortal Kombat. Remember, he's the one that wandered into the room when they were doing the first one. Is like, why do you call it Mortal Kombat?
I mean, he was right. Just saying.
He was right. So how do you find him compared to Shang Tsung as a boss, Quinn?
I actually like him more as a boss.
Yeah.
Because Shang Tsung felt like a... There's a thing in like early fighting games where it's like some of the bosses would just be like the most uncreative shit. Honestly, Shang Tsung just being every character is the definition of like uncreative.
A bit uninspired.
Like the original version didn't have many moves either. Like even the updated 1 and 2 has more shit than even the on its own. I mean, not without the switching.
That's
right?
true, Quinn. Yeah.
Like this is a real fucking boss.
He looks like a fucking boss. He's not an old man.
Yeah, he's not an old man. He's like huge.
He's got an armor.
I just remember he has like a kick that can like literally kick you across the screen.
Yeah, he's a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Is that your best?
There are 3 hidden unplayable characters in this game.
Of course there is.
So we have a green version, this is definitely a callback to Reptile, you know it is, of Katana and Melina known as Jade.
Yes.
She makes her debut here. She would go on to become a regular character. We have a gray ninja, a friend of Sub-Zero's known as Smoke.
Now, Smoke was super cool.
Oh my god, I loved Smoke as a kid.
I gotta say this about Smoke.
Yeah. Yes.
For a long time, I confused that he was the secret character in Mortal Kombat 1 also. Like that he had like somehow maintained his secret status in 2.
No, that's Reptile in 1.
Yeah. But the cool thing about Smoke is that like the smoke is like coming off the character, which was like, whoa, that's like it makes him more than just like generic gray ninja.
He looks awesome.
Yeah.
And then the third secret ninja is a all black.
This is another really cool character.
Yes, an all black silhouette known as Noob Saibot, which if you reverse Noob Saibot, you will get Boone and Tobias.
Yes, or Tobias Boone, however you want to read it.
So he's a completely like colorless, just black silhouette ninja.
It's basically they just took the ninja sprite and just removed all the color from it. That's it.
Now, you know who in canon, again, none of this matters, but you know who that is? Who we find out later?
What?
The original Sub-Zero. I know these things bother you, right?
Because who cares? Who gives a shit?
I don't know.
Like, it's nothing. Like,
wow,
what a reveal.
No, you can't play.
Does he play like Sub-Zero? No, so who cares?
You can't play as these characters, by the way, unless there's codes that I'm unaware of, but you can play them under meeting certain conditions. But that's the characters, that's the release. When we come back, we have more to talk about. We've got to talk about all the stages here. What does the outworld look like? Where are we fighting? You know what I mean? And we got to talk about the fatalities and the other alities that there are and the reception. So we'll be doing all of that on the other side of this break when more Acid Wash Memories returns.
I've got a bad disease. Far from my brain is where I bleed. Insanity, it seems, it's got me by my soul to squeeze.
Prepare yourself for combat. Mortal Kombat action figures. Fight for right in your own tournament of champions. Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Raiden, get over here. Sub-Zero, Reptile in the Dragon MK1, Kano on the Combat Cycle. Mortal Kombat, it's not just a game anymore. Mortal Kombat action figures. Combat Cycle comes with Kano, Dragon MK1 comes with Reptile.
Never before has a game been so perfectly poised for such massive success. What was a roaring blaze will now become a raging inferno of pride. Get ready to feel the heat of Mortal Kombat II, the world's ultimate fighting machine.
Why is Dave Thomas up at the crack of dawn? Dave? He's getting fresh vegetables for Wendy's Garden Spot Salad Bar. Ripe tomatoes, crisp cucumbers. You can't make a fresher salad than at Wendy's unless you get up with Dave.
Already?
And now we return to more Acid Washed Memories.
And welcome back to Acid Wash Memories. This is episode number 74. We're talking about Mortal Kombat 2. I'm Joe Morata alongside Michael Quinn. Hello,
Howdy.
Michael. Howdy there. We were talking about how this game is better than the first one.
It is.
And we were talking about how this game is better than the third one.
Yes.
So this is really like a great game.
It truly is like as they went for the Empire Strikes Back of Mortal Kombat. It's way better.
I think it is. Folks, thank you so much for being here with us. We really do appreciate you. If you think that we're good, if you could leave us a review on your podcast app of choice, we'd love that. Follow us on Twitter at AWM Podcast and join the group and talk about why Quinn is wrong or right about the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 1.
I don't care that much, but to be fair, the Super is like the best version of 2. Get out of here.
Well, I won't argue that. We'll talk about that. But we're talking about the characters. We ran them all down. We even got some hidden characters again. We got some unplayables with the bosses and things. We don't have Goro, sadly.
Right.
However, every good fight needs a location, right?
That's true.
And in the first Mortal Kombat game, there were very few good locations.
Yeah, I mean, reviewing those, it was like kind of like, what the fuck is this shit, right?
We liked the shrine, right,
Yeah.
with all the statues. That one was
Yeah.
cool. The one where Shang Tsung's in the chair looking at you like an old grandma knitting is kind of funny.
It's okay. I mean, like, it's just not as good. These stages are like iconic.
Yes.
Like everyone remembers these stages.
These are
too.
great. And much like the first Mortal Kombat, the stages do not belong to a particular character.
Right.
This is where you go in order,
These
no matter
are
what.
places where you fight.
Correct. So the first one is known as Deadpool, and this is the one where there's acid surrounding this concrete bridge.
So what I love about this stage is the idea of it's kind of a reverse pit in a sense where like when you knock them in, and there is a way to knock them in.
Yep, there's a stage
they
fatality.
Go behind you, not below you, and they go in that acid shit, right?
Yep.
This always, I'll be honest with you, I know no stage is anybody's particular stage, but this felt like obviously reptiles. Right?
Maybe it's
like,
his house.
Yeah, like it felt like this is where they keep Reptile, maybe like to beat up people or something.
Matanza.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, because this is like his domain or something.
Acid. No, I get it. That's the name of our show. It's in the name of our show,
It's
Quinn.
true.
Next up is the Combat Tomb, which another classic-looking one.
This looks like, just a classic, it's got like a center thing, so it looks like a fight arena of some kind, right?
It does, and it's got like skulls in the concrete. It's got the red sky of the outworld there.
So it feels like you're at the top of some kind of tower of some kind, but there's a fighting arena above it.
Yeah, you're right. And there's a stage fatality in this one, too, which is where you can actually uppercut them into spikes that are at the very top of the
there's
stage.
spikes in the ceiling that you don't see unless you do the fatality.
Yep. really cool.
It's, again, another reverse pit.
I think that's great that they're starting to add in more stage fatalities too, because they did it with the first game with the pit only.
It's true.
But now you have a few. The next one is the Wasteland. This one's like purpley.
I never thought this was the best
No,
one.
this is very Street Fighter 1 again.
This is very like... So what it looks like is like it's like the outer parts of the city, I guess, where like Shao Kahn lives, because you can like see like a castle of some kind in the background.
Wicked Witch's castle up
Yeah,
there
it
or
looks
something,
like
right?
the road to his house
Yeah,
kind of
it
thing.
does.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like not really much to say other than it's just, oh look, it's like dead shit and stuff. You know,
can't win them all, I guess.
Yeah.
Next up is the Tower. This has a floating monk, I believe. in
Now,
it.
specifically, this one's cool only because the parallax, they turn up the speed on the sky in the background.
With the clouds, yeah.
And it looks like you're like, I always thought you're in some kind of moving thing. Like, I know you're not, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're in a ship or something. Like, it looks like you're like traveling fast.
It does. I think because you're so high up that the clouds are just zooming by you or something.
But it always looked really cool, this stage.
Yes, I agree. The next one is pretty memorable. The Living Forest with the faces and the trees.
Now, okay, I swear maybe this is the Super Nintendo version only, but I felt like the Super Nintendo one would always punch you into this. I felt like I saw this stage more than anything. The trees.
It's just once. It's just normal.
Just constantly with the stage.
This one always gave me, speaking of the Wizard of Oz, gave me vibes from the Haunted Forest
yeah,
or whatever.
I mean, this is Wizard of Oz got written all over it, right?
I want to say that's like Ed Boon's face or somebody's face that was on the
Probably.
thing. I think it is.
It looks like him.
Yeah. If you don't remember this one, folks, is where the trees have faces and they make weird moving faces at you. It's kind of creepy.
They really only do two motions. I think it's just like a resting face and a smiling face or whatever it is, or like a menacing face. I don't think they do anything else.
No, I think you're right. I think that's true. Then we have the Armory.
Cool stage.
Really cool stage. There's a lot of axes floating around.
Yeah, it's like there's all these weapons behind you in the logo of Mortal Kombat. It's cool. It is a cool idea.
What do you think they do in there when they're not fighting? Do they eat?
I assume it's the barracks for the Dark World.
Yeah, I think so.
Or Outer World troops.
Yeah. Do you think the mess hall?
Not the mess hall. This is the Armory. This is like the
I understand
weapons
what an armory.
room.
I know,
Yeah.
but you think that they maybe use it as overflow?
Maybe. It's kind of just a closet at the end of the day.
Sorry.
Saying.
All right. Then we have Pit 2.
Yes, Pit 2. So this is the new pit of the game.
Yes.
This is like it's the same thing.
Hi, me again, because the Pit 2 stage, well, it uses the same theme song as Wasteland. So that's why the guy he didn't put in a theme under this. So if you don't hear a theme under there going forward, that's why.
But we got some things going on here that'll make it better. First of all, there's like other people fighting in the background.
Yes.
And I don't remember if it changes per time you're on the stage.
That I can't remember.
But the one we have in front of us is Liu Kang facing somebody's head's on fire. Somebody's been fatalityed, I think, in the background.
It's Mortal Kombat.
But you can get knocked off this now. If I recall, this pit does not have spikes. It's just it's like a dead fall.
This pit is just down into the concrete, I think, and
it seems worse, by the way, than even the spikes. Because at least the spikes will break your fall.
Yeah, and your ass.
And it's shown differently from like a movie villain dying to his death is like an overhead shot.
Yeah.
And you can't just do it with a standard uppercut. It's a stage fatality.
Yeah.
It's a whole sequence.
And see, this is what I got to say. This is like, I was not a fan of the idea of the one thing the pit was cool about was for players who didn't know how to do fatalities, they could do something.
Yes, agreed.
The fact that they now you got to do, it's like, come on.
The first time I just did like an uppercut and nothing happened.
It was like very disappointing.
Yes.
Like, it was like, why are they not going down there?
Yeah, exactly. But it is cool if they called back to the pit. This is a much scarier looking pit because obviously we're in Outworld or Dark Realm or whatever it's called.
It appears to be higher up because the clouds are like level with you in the background.
Yeah,
so maybe that's why they show the falling differently, because it's like, no, they're falling like really far.
Good eye,
right?
Quinn. Yeah, good eye. We were talking about portals earlier. Well, the next stage is the portal.
Another one that's very similar to the tower sky thing.
Yeah, the floating monks.
Again, cool. I always like this. The monks thing. They look cool in this stage.
So you think that big red thing is Earthrealm?
That's like where we came from.
Yeah, okay.
This is like, if anything, this should be like the first stage, right? Because this is where you show up at, right? It's like, oh, here we are at the portal.
Little exposition here. Here we are at the portal.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have Khan's Arena, which is Basically, in my mind, Quinn, this is a callback to the one where Shang Tsung is sitting high up in the, I think it's the courtyard, I can't remember the name of the stage, where Shang Tsung is up on the chair.
It's very similar.
Very similar, except Shao Kahn is like right up in your face practically behind you, and there's a bunch of people looking on cheering. I think this is a tremendous stage, and when you fight him in it, he's off the throne.
Right. Yeah, he comes off, so it's like they actually like did it correctly.
Love it.
I'm sure they wouldn't have fucked something like that up. I mean, this game had a budget, so...
And they were smart guys, too.
Yeah.
And then we'll mention Goro's lairs in this. This is where you fight the hidden characters, like randomly in Goro's lair. They just like imported that in.
That's the like sore looking level from the first one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They just brought it back just for that. So that's a little weird, but whatever. And then there are 2 cameos in this game. By cameo, I mean they're not playable, nor do you fight them. But Sonya Blade and Kano both appear tied up.
Right.
In the background of Khan's arena.
Right. And this has something to do with the story. Like, there's something about, like, how they both were captured.
I think it was...
Maybe they were fighting each other because they hate each other.
Sonya was pursuing him.
And they captured both of them.
I believe so. I think that's what it is.
It's a nice callback.
I think so. Yep. So we talked about the fatalities, which was all the talk when it came to Mortal Kombat. I mentioned earlier, everyone has at least 2 like regular, violent, cut your head off, punch your face, punch your dick, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also the friendship. We have to talk about friendships.
Right, friendships.
Let's talk about friendships, Quinn.
Okay.
I want to run down what they are, because I think that they're all very funny, and when you consider the violence that Mortal Kombat was known for at the time, having these put in here was a brilliant choice.
Right, because they're almost like a meta commentary on the fact that they got like Lieberman and all this, like
good friend of the show, Joe Lieberman,
right? Like that, like they were under a lot of pressure because of the fatalities in the first one. So
right,
it's almost like in a weird way like a middle finger. It's like oh, here's these like goofy, like they're not even anything.
They're not anything, but they're always funny to me anytime they're done or anytime I do them.
I would say there's one that's like the most notable.
What is it?
The Johnny Cage giving his autograph one is
amazing.
Like one of the ones where it was like, in my head, it added a lot of personality to Johnny Cage. I was like, put in the forefront, it's like, no, he's a movie star or whatever,
yes.
right? And
yes.
it's like he gives his autograph,
it's
like
really funny.
It like appears on the screen. It's like a picture. It's like a glossy of him with an autograph on it.
Yes, I think it's a great. It's
such a good friendship.
Baraka, probably the most like demonic looking, fucked up, playable character. He gives you a birthday gift. Mm-hmm. Jax makes some origami.
Yeah, they're all dumb. It's true.
Katana gives you a birthday cake.
Yeah.
Kung Lao pulls a rabbit out of his hat.
Well, I mean, he has a hat. He knows some magic.
Liu Kang does disco dancing.
That one's good. I like that one. Yeah.
It's really good.
To me, the Killer Instinct ripped that off with the like like the like dancing,
the little
thing.
Dance thing. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That's Midway also, I think, right? Killer Instinct.
No, Rare. Coming to Ultra 64 in 1995 or whatever. Like it was a Rare game.
Coming to Ultra 64. Melina, your favorite. She waters the ground and then a flower grows.
That's
like just
very pleasant.
I know. Raiden just brings in baby Raiden to play. Remember?
That was weird.
I know.
I don't like that.
Reptile shows off his reptile doll. Scorpion, his scorpion doll. Sub-Zero, his Sub-Zero doll. And Shang Tsung makes a rainbow.
Yeah, the Shang Tsung one is like really bizarre.
It is.
Like,
it's cute.
I remember he like his hands is like loop. Like
yeah.
It's like what?
It's really, really cute. I'm serious. So those are the. I think again, I said it. It is created by Rare, by the way. Killer Instinct, published by Midway. So you're right. But anyway, sorry, we just had to settle that dispute here on the air. Quinn's right, though. Rare made the game. Anyway, another notable thing here of Mortal Kombat 2, this would become a recurring thing, is Dan Forden.
Toasty! Yes, Toasty. So this is, again, I feel like this is very Mandela effect. Like, everyone thought, like, to me too, I always think this was, like, in the original, but it's not. But this was, okay. As a player at the time, I was like, I don't understand what triggers this. Like, why does this happen? Because it felt like it was completely random. And it generally was always after, like, an uppercut or something. But, like, why does it happen?
Okay. So,
what is the exact what are the exact conditions?
Okay. Well, I believe it's an uppercut in a certain situation.
It's not every uppercut. It's like something specific.
I forget the exact condition, but it is after an uppercut, but not every single one.
So because, well, I found this on GameFAQs.com. You remember that site? It's actually pronounced FAQ, but okay. So the guy on here says, you have to knock your opponent past an invisible line in the air. Most regular uppercuts won't do it unless it's an anti-air or part of a juggle.
The reason why this is a thing is when they would be playing games together during their development, they would taunt each other, and I think it was Ed Boon would say, "You're toast," and he would use that as like a funny taunt. "You're toast," and that eventually became "You're toasty," and then it was just shortened to "Toasty." So they would just like taunt each other when they were like fucking with each other playing video games.
Toasty to this day lives on.
To this day,
like every Mortal Kombat, it's like it's expected that this thing is in here,
and it's always a different picture of Dan Forden.
Yeah, so that's
like
the other.
Updates.
That's the other weird thing, right? Is like, that it literally like updates. But I feel like the Mortal Kombat 3 edition of it is the one that like stuck the most, where he has like the weird like short hair and a purple shirt on. Like it's like that's the one like everyone remembers because he just looks stupid.
The purple shirt one is the weirdest. Although the Mortal Kombat 2 one, it's not that much different. He's just got a different shirt.
Yeah. Now, it's just bizarre, too, because it also doesn't... So, remember how I said, like, the characters were, like, they don't look as scanned in or whatever?
Yes.
Like, they look more like they go with the game.
Yes.
This literally, like, why this is weird is because it just looks like a fucking JPEG image of this dude.
Of a dude, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just there. And, like... Again, when we were all first playing the game, we're like, who the fuck is this guy, right? It's like, I think I had so many times where we were playing and we're like, somebody would just burst out like, who is that?
Yeah.
Like who is this man?
Who is this? What is this?
And we called him the Toasty guy.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't know his name or anything.
Name.
Like, nobody knew his name. The Toasty guy.
I want to hear from anyone listening here, because some of my friends thought that he said whoopsie.
Yeah, so there was other...
Was it you too?
No,
like
it wasn't.
Knew people?
No, it wasn't that. It was that there was some dispute about like what he said. Like,
I always heard Toasty.
I don't really remember
Toasty.
I don't really remember. I do remember this, is that I swore that even in MK2, he would say two different things.
It's not an MK2. I think it's 3 or one of the derivatives of 3, where he starts saying like Frosty or like there are other ones, but not in 2.
Yeah,
it's as far as I remember, it's just Toasty in 2. But he is he's like really, really, really memorable.
Yes, he is.
It's so dumb, and that's again the sense of humor I was talking about earlier in the show here. That they would have something that dumb in there.
It's dumb,
and they've carried it out.
Yeah,
throughout the whole series. It's really funny. Toasty! So this game, as we mentioned, was released in November of '93 in the arcades, right at the heels of Mortal Monday for the first game. There was also a comic book released for additional backstory.
I mean,
I know comics sell. I understand.
Well, you have to remember too, it's the '90s, and like comic books were doing real good at this time.
They were.
Like, everyone wanted a piece of that business.
Superman died. Remember?
Yeah, like Superman died. The X-Men were like redone to be good.
Yeah.
Like,
including Gambit.
Yeah, like comic books were a hot thing, and like if you could get your video game associated with a comic book, I mean, you're gonna make some money.
Fair enough,
right?
Glenn. Yeah, fair. As you might imagine, folks, Mortal Kombat 2 got a huge reception in the arcade, even better received than the first one. It was the highest grossing arcade game of 1994 in the United States of America. I do want to clarify, it wasn't even in the top 10 in Japan. It was a much bigger hit over here.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, Japan's a Street Fighter place. They're like, what is this crap?
Yeah, we don't need this
But I will
shit.
say this about Mortal Kombat, also just as far as its commercial viability.
Sure.
I really think a lot had to do, too, with like, I know this is stupid, but the logo is badass in this game. Like the dragon with like the thunderbolt going through it, and like the font where the 2 is like on the L and the K, like in the middle.
And the
like,
color choice is good of the logo.
This game, the cabinet looked badass.
Yes,
like
it did.
this looked like, yo, I want to play this, right? It's like, it was no screwing around.
It looked more serious than the first game, the cabinet, right?
Yeah.
The colors looked serious.
It just looked cool.
Yeah. You know, speaking of cabinets, Quinn, around this time in the early mid-90s, if an arcade game shipped 5,000 cabinets to various arcades, that was considered like a really good game.
Well, think about the money it was probably bringing in, 5,000 units and kids just dropping quarters in them left and right. I mean, they were making tons of money off of that.
Mortal Kombat 2 shipped 27,000 cabinets.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Good
now,
Lord.
I want to say that still did not top Street Fighter 2.
I don't know.
No, well, I know this because apparently Street Fighter 2 has like some obscene record of like cabinets. Like the Street Fighter 2 is very specifically like one of the like the biggest arcade games ever made.
It wouldn't surprise me because it was a huge hit in Japan as well, whereas this was not.
Yeah.
To be fair. But I mean, this was a big seller, obviously, and it was going to come home. And we all couldn't wait for this to come home after playing our Mortal Kombat 1, throughout 94.
So, yeah, I will say this. I do think what's interesting is I know I played this in the arcades, but not as much because I think there was a weird effect personally where it was like, well, I can't play this at my house and we can't play it outside the arcade, so like let's just go back to Mortal Kombat 1. It was kind of like we were just waiting for 2.
I was definitely waiting for 2.
We were waiting for it, but we weren't. I don't know if it was like I was like, I don't want to get too used to 2 because I still have to play 1 with my one of those things. Like,
no, I know there was a lot of anticipation, and I'll tell you, the distribution here for the home consoles was handled by Acclaim, as it was for the first one. Huge ad campaign, basically mirroring what they had done the year before. And on September 13th, 1994, it was known as Mortal Tuesday. No one ever talks about this one, but it was called Mortal Tuesday. This is where it was released for Genesis. Probe Software handled that. All the blood, all the fatalities, no code for Genesis. Sculptured Software handled the Super Nintendo version.
I remember that.
Yep.
Like when it was so like, whoa, okay. Like who? First of all, I was always like, who the fuck are these?
Sculptured Software?
Right, because I was always like, isn't this made by Acclaim or whoever?
Right,
like,
right. No, I know. It was confusing as a kid, all these names. So, in a stark contrast to Mortal Kombat 1, the Super Nintendo version here has all of the blood, all of the fatalities, and no censoring. Now, the ESRB did not kick in until November of 94. However, Nintendo got around this by just putting a warning on the box itself.
Right. So, what I remember about Mortal Kombat 2 for Super Nintendo specifically is what you said, was that, like, it felt like the best version. Yeah. Like, without any compromises, and this was noted in the magazines, too, at the time. It was
oh, God, yeah.
And this is what I meant in the last episode about how, like, yeah, they didn't take a chance by, like, getting rid of the blood. But, like, if you really look back at the Super Nintendo version of 1, it was a no compromises version without the blood, basically. Like, what I mean by that is...
That's a big compromise,
What I mean by no compromises is the graphics look the same. The size of the characters and shit. That's, like, the thing that
really good.
Really bugged me about the Genesis one. It was like, yeah, it's got the blood, but, like, they're mini versions of, like, everything. And, like, it's got this, like, the music doesn't match the arcade properly.
Some people like that sound, though.
I know, but like I guess that's the first one felt more closer to the arcade on Super.
Okay.
Again, no blood, I know, but like still, like, and why? But that's important because when MK2 comes around and the blood is back, it means that MK2 is just like way better on Super Nintendo.
I think it'd be very hard to argue unless you're just too much of a diehard Genesis fan and you can't swallow your pride ever. I think it's a tough sell to tell me that the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat 2 is better than the Super Nintendo
it just
version.
Isn't.
I don't think anyone thinks that. I'm sure someone does, and they're going to tell us why. But I don't know.
Ultimately, the point is Genesis couldn't get away with we allow the blood as like its excuse for why it was better.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah. Now it's a level playing field.
Yeah.
You can see which one turned out better. It was also released for Game Boy, of course, Game Gear, the Master System.
I'll always say this. I felt that the Mortal Kombats on Game Boy, I was always surprised that they were like competent. Like, unlike the Street Fighters on Game Boy, they were like real bad. But like the Mortal Kombats on Game Boy were like, this ain't bad.
Okay.
Like, this is very playable.
Fair enough. Why are they releasing shit on Master System? It must be Brazil. It must be Brazil.
Absolutely. That Brazil market was massive.
I know.
Like, it was like, we need to get it over there.
I think that's what it was.
It needs to be over there.
It found its way to Sega's 32X, which, as we all know, was a really big hit.
Yeah.
It found its way also to PlayStation in Japan only, and is noted
Which is funny considering like Japan doesn't care about Mortal Kombat,
and noted for being very buggy. Sega Saturn as well, same thing.
Do you think they did that almost like experimentally because they knew the third one would have to definitely be on PlayStation and Saturn, like it would have to be?
I think you're right. Get their feet wet. Yeah, I do. I think you're
so
right.
Like, we'll only put it in Japan. They don't care anyway, so we can like fuck it up and like it won't matter.
It won't
like,
sully anything. Yeah, I think you're right. And it was on Amiga, of course it was, because everyone had that. The home reception. Okay. Within the first week of its console releases, Mortal Tuesday, Mortal Kombat 2 across all consoles generated over $50 million in sales, which is...
that's pretty good.
At that point, it was actually one of the largest first weeks for a video game.
And that's 2 million copies, right?
It's like 2.5 million copies.
Okay, and that's really good back then. Because
for a first week, yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, to put it in perspective, there's a very notable list of best-selling video games ever or whatever on Wikipedia, and like
what's that?
The top stuff is always like in the 20 million, like that's where it starts, and then the highest selling is like fucking Minecraft or something like 300 million. But units though, not revenue.
Right, but we're talking first week, right? Sales. That was more revenue than movies that came out around that time, like Forrest Gump and The Lion King. Just think about how popular this was, is what I'm trying to illustrate. Like, this is not just like some kids like this thing.
Yeah.
You know, like...
Well, the way I felt about Mortal Kombat 2 was when it came out, it was like an event and everyone had to have a copy of it. It was just like...
Or rent it,
it was like, this is like one of the biggest games around. Like, this was like something everyone wanted. It didn't even matter what kind of games you played. It was like kind of like, you just have to have Mortal Kombat 2, right? It's like, that's it.
2-player game.
And it didn't
play with a friend.
And this is during the age of like people didn't have every console, so the fact that it was like on everything, it made it very easily accessible.
Well, exactly. That was the other.
So if you only had a Genesis, it was you could play it. If you had only had a Super,
you could play it. Yeah,
you could play it. Right.
It was the top-selling game, no surprise, in September '94 for both the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Genesis wound up selling 1.78 million copies total ever lifetime in the U.S. That is significantly down. They sold 3.25 million for the first Mortal Kombat. So this is still, though, their number 7 highest game for Genesis was Mortal Kombat 2. Pretty freaking good.
That's not a surprise.
No, not a surprise. It was a popular game.
Especially considering how popular the first one was on Genesis.
Now, Super Nintendo, who had sold only about 500,000 of the first Mortal Kombat, because no blood.
Sure, that went up.
1.5 million.
Yeah, well, I mean, not to mention the thing is that it even permeated the magazines where it was like, no, like the Super Nintendo's like the best version this time. Like it just is.
Oh yeah,
like that was like pretty much like commonly known at that point.
The overall critical consensus is that Super Nintendo had the edge on the console port.
Yeah,
like that's everyone said that.
And this, to me, in a weird way, coincides with the time period where Super Nintendo started eclipsing Genesis. That 1994 period, like
into
that year where
95,
like Super Metroid came out, and like all these games. Mortal Kombat 2 was just part of this. No, Super Nintendo is like now the number one. Like it's not. It's not really questionable anymore.
I think that's fair, Quinn. And if you're interested in that, folks, we did talk about that in the Super Nintendo versus Genesis episode. Available in the archives. If you
but
want
this
more
game,
on
I feel, was like a milestone marker for like, okay, Super Nintendo's like in front now. Like they're like they're. It's like it was that year, like Mortal Kombat, Super Nintendo, Super Metroid,
Donkey Kong Country came out at the end of the year.
Yeah, like it was just like they were just like hit after hit after hit. Like nothing stunk on Super Nintendo at this point, and it was just the best.
And Sega was like, they had blown it with Sega CD. They were doing
fading.
32X.
They were fading, and people were already like talking like, when's the next Sega system, right?
Which that went well.
Yeah.
But anyway, the critical reception of the home ports, especially the two big 16-bit ones, was almost unanimously positive. Sushi X liked it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sushi X. He's always the best one.
You gotta have Sushi X.
Now, I found out that there's a site somewhere where, like, Sushi X, it's been revealed which guy on EGM was Sushi X for, like, each... Like it was different every review. Like it was always when they like were like, we need to have like an anonymous or something.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like one of the editors would just like be Sushi, but there was like somebody who was Sushi more often than not. Like I forget his name.
Mystery is Squin.
Yeah.
And like we said, the Super Nintendo one in particular was lauded as a fantastic arcade to home port.
Right.
Much better than the first game. Overall, I mean, we know what happens. We're going to talk about what happens in the next part of this, though. We do. Mortal Kombat 3 came out, but they seem primed right here, just like Street Fighter was. When we hit it with Street Fighter 2. It's always the 2 is the best, is like very good in these series, right? Yeah. So just like Capcom, when we did our Street Fighter series, it's like, well, we'll just make 3. Let's just do it. It'll be great, right? Mortal Kombat is kind of in the same boat now. They released 2 in a row. They've got a movie in the works. Like the third one's cursed or something. Right. So we'll have to find out next time what happens in Mortal Kombat 3. But to this day, as far as Mortal Kombat 2, it is a fondly remembered, warmly received game. It is considered the best by a lot of people of the original series. And I guess a classic. I wanted to ask, because I have very good memories of this. Like, do you have memories of like playing this? Like, I do. I never owned it. I had to rent it. I never got to buy it, but I rented it frequently. Did you play at other people's houses? Yes. I just personally never had it, but I played it a lot. I rented it every Friday if I could for a period of time. Right. You know what I mean? When I got to rent a video game, played it with my brother, played it with my friends. My step brother had it. Actually, there's another person that had it. Loved it. Absolutely head and shoulders above Mortal Kombat 1 to me. I even, at times, I think I was like, wow, I like this more than Street Fighter 2, which is rare for me, It was questionable. Yeah. Like, at the time, it was that good. It was that good. I remember specifically, I didn't own it at first. I played it at my friend's. He lived next door. And I do remember, like, the first weekend or whatever. I don't know if it was launch, because I really don't. Because back then, you were a kid, games just, like, appeared at people's houses. Like, you just, like, I don't know. Like, it's new to me, right? And, like, it was definitely, like, when it was new. Like, it was definitely 94, no doubt about that. Sure. But I remember going over and playing this game. He lived in an apartment that had, like, a loft, and that's where the video games was in the loft. Not an attic, right? No, because it was definitely like, it's not an attic because it's like an overhang loft where it's like open to it's like you can see it from the living room if you look up, kind of thing. Like a balcony up there. Yeah. So anyway, we played this for hours, like into the middle of the night, and we would do this for like many weekends in a row. Like, we were like obsessed with Mortal Kombat 2. Like, and I totally agree with you. Like, I think we would even have these discussions where we're like, is this better than Street Fighter? Right. Like we're not sure, but they're both really good. With the first Mortal Kombat, there was no question. It was like Street Fighter's still better. But I think the discussion always came back to the fact that, like, I think Street Fighter always felt like a more technical game where it was like, really was more skill based. Like, there was a lot more nuance you could do in Street Fighter 2. It was the Bret Hart, if you will. Yeah, there was a lot more, like, it felt endless as far as like learning stuff in Street Fighter 2. Like, you could always come back to it. But like Mortal Kombat was a little more Steve Austin. Yeah, it was like in your face. Like, look at all this cool shit. But once you see it, it's kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Interesting. But we loved both of them. Yeah, same here. I did too. Yeah. I want to hear your memories, folks. We do. You can join our group. You can tell us on Twitter. It was certainly an awesome time to be a video game fan if you were able to play Mortal Kombat 2. This year in general, I almost feel like 1994 in video games is like definitely like a peak. It is, though. There was a lot of good shit. There was a lot of good shit this year, but Mortal Kombat was definitely up there. It's a classic. It's a classic. It'll always be fondly remembered. And it coming to the home was kind of in a weird way, the end of the mania, right? Because all of it was built around, like, when is it coming to the home consoles, right? Yeah. And, like, once it came, and it was fun for a couple months, and everyone's like, when's the next Mortal Kombat, right? It was like, that kind of felt like what happened, right? It was like this entire year of, like, it came out in the arcades, and we can only get a taste of it, and then we finally got it, and it was like, okay, when's the next Mortal Kombat? And we will be talking about that, folks. However, next week will be, of course, something completely different. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on Twitter, join our Facebook group, leave us a review. But really, as far as Mortal Kombat 2, let us know your thoughts, your memories, which home version you think is better. If you say Genesis, at least explain why. Please, explain why. It's really hard to justify at this point. Right. But we hope it wasn't hard to justify listening to this, folks. We really do appreciate you. We'll be back next week for something else. Until that time, I'm Joe Morata, that's Michael Quinn, and this has been Acid Washed Memories. See ya.
Like what you heard? Be sure to leave a review and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We will see you next week.